About 2,000 years ago, humans were still living as nomads, wandering from place to place in search of food. They hadn't yet settled down and built villages or cities. They were more like modern-day nomads, traveling with their herds of animals and sleeping in tents. But then something changed. Maybe it was the invention of farming, or maybe it was just the desire for a more stable life. Whatever the reason, humans started to settle down and build the first villages. And so began the Neolithic revolution. The first villages were small, typically consisting of only a few dozen people. They were also very simple. Most of the year, they looked like nomadic camps, nothing but tents made of animal skins. But when winter came, the nomads would stay put and make their tents out of wood. These early villages were often located near rivers or other sources of water, because water is essential for human survival. They were also usually surrounded by fields where the villagers could grow their crops. Life in the first villages was not easy. The villagers had to constantly defend themselves against attacks from other tribes. They also had to deal with the harsh weather conditions and the lack of modern conveniences. But despite the challenges, people continued to settle down and form villages. One of the most famous examples of an early village is the site of Jericho in the Middle East. Evidence suggests that humans have been living at Jericho continuously for more than 11,000 years, making it one of the oldest inhabited places on Earth. Another well-known early village is Catalhayek in Turkey. This village was founded around 7500 BC and was home to about 3,000 people. It was one of the largest settlements of its time and lasted for more than 2,000 years. Some historians believe that the first villages were a natural progression from the earlier way of life. As humans developed new technologies, they were able to stay in one place for longer periods of time. This led to the development of agriculture and the domestication of animals. With a reliable food supply, humans could then specialize in other tasks such as pottery, tool-making, and hunting. Over time, these specialists formed communities, and the first villages were born. Others argue that the creation of the first villages was a conscious decision by humans to give up their nomadic lifestyle and settle down. This may have been driven by a variety of factors, such as the desire for a more stable life, the need for protection from other tribes, or the opportunity to farm the land and raise livestock. Whatever the motivation, the decision to settle down and build a village was a major turning point in human history. There are several theories about how the transition from nomadic to settled life occurred. One theory is that it happened gradually over a period of centuries. Another theory is that it was a sudden and dramatic change that took place within a few generations. There is evidence to support both of these theories. For example, the archaeological record shows that there was a gradual increase in the size and complexity of settlements during the Neolithic period. This suggests that the transition to a settled way of life was a gradual process. On the other hand, there are also examples of sudden and dramatic changes in the archaeological record. For example, in some areas, there is evidence of a single, large village being replaced by several smaller ones. This suggests that the transition to a settled way of life may have been more sudden and dramatic in some places. Ultimately, the jury is still out on how the transition from nomadic to settled life occurred. More research is needed to say for sure. However, what is clear is that this transition was a major turning point in human history. It allowed humans to develop more complex societies and eventually gave rise to civilization as we know it today. But why did the nomads of ancient times suddenly decide to settle down? Well, there are a few reasons. For one, they had been following their herds of animals for generations, moving from place to place as the animals migrated. But as the climate began to change, the animals started to settle down in one place for longer periods of time. This meant that the nomads could too. They also started to notice that if they planted seeds in the ground, they would grow into food. They could also domesticate animals and raise them for food and clothing. With a reliable food source, they no longer had to move around constantly in search of food. Another reason is that they wanted to protect themselves from other tribes. When you're constantly on the move, it's hard to defend yourself from attacks. But when you have a village, you can build walls and train soldiers to protect your people. And finally, they probably just got tired of moving around. After following their herds for thousands of years, they probably started to feel like settling down and putting down roots. Building a village is no easy task. The first step is to find a suitable location. You need a place with enough food, water, and shelter for everyone in the village. The next step is to plan the village. You need to decide where to put the houses, farms, and other buildings. You also need to plan for defense in case other tribes attack. Once the village is planned, it's time to start building. The houses are usually built first, followed by the farms and other buildings. It takes a lot of work to build a village, but it's worth it. When you have a place to call home, you can plant crops, raise livestock, and defend yourself from attacks. The first villages were probably a mix of tents and huts, made of wood and thatch. As time went on, the villages grew and the houses became more permanent. Some of the houses were made of stone and had thatched roofs. Others were made of mud brick. In some cases, the houses had courtyards where the family could eat and sleep. Life in the first villages was tough. The people had to work hard to grow food and defend themselves from attacks, but it was also exciting. The people were building new homes and creating new ways of life. They were also coming into contact with other cultures and learning new things. Overall, life in the first villages was not easy, but it was definitely an adventure. As the villages grew, so did the people's technology. They developed new tools and weapons made of bronze and iron. They also learned how to write and keep records. This helped them to keep track of their crops, livestock, and other important things. It also helped them to communicate with other villages. The growth of villages also led to the development of social classes. In the beginning, all the members of the village were pretty much equal. But as the village grew, some people became wealthier than others. This led to a division between the rich and the poor. The rich people started to have more power than the poor people. This eventually led to the development of kingdoms and empires. In conclusion, the first villages were a pivotal point in human history. They marked the transition from nomadic to settled life and allowed for the development of agriculture, social classes, and eventually civilization. Although life in the first villages was tough, it was also exciting and full of opportunity. The first villages were truly the birthplace of civilization. Hey, if you want to learn more about the first villages, check out these videos right here. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an exciting episode of Boring History for Sleep. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. By doing so, you'll be joining a community of over 100,000 history lovers who are dedicated to learning about the past in a fun and engaging way. We've got new episodes every week, so there's always fresh content to look forward to. And if you want even more history, you can follow me on social media. I share historical facts and stories there every day. So come and join us. It's a great community, and we can't wait to welcome you.